And we are live. Hello, hello, hello. I believe I am the very last event or takeover or whatever it is for GuildifyCon, and it's is it GuildifyCon? GuildifyCon? I can never remember. But I just wanted to say, hey, I have had a blast hanging out with everyone. Um, and GuildifyCon. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, GuildifyCon. Uh, It's been awesome, not only to be on panels and to, joke and talk with fellow narrators and authors, but also getting to moderate, which I didn't do as much of this year, but that's okay. We had some great moderators this year. I was very impressed, and getting to play a game of D&D was fantastic. Jack Fields was unbelievable. Hiya, it's Maria and John Doe. How you doing? So glad you could join me here. If you do have any questions, please, put them in there and we can chat about it. Uh, James. Oh my goodness. James. I didn't get to watch your takeover live, but I watched it after the fact. I was busy when you took over, but I watched it after the fact and uh, I thought it was really cool. How did you get so nice and also so handsome? Hey there, how's it going? Um, You know what? I have to blame genetics on that and being Canadian, I suppose. That's how I got nice and handsome. Although I used to be much better looking and then I got old and now I look decrepit. Um, but yeah, I saw you hanging out with Brian there and talking about I've been like hinting at it because I haven't been able to say anything and I still feel guilty not being able to say anything because like I still feel like bad not putting anything official out there because um uh so this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler for those of you who didn't see James's live. Hey Steve, how you doing? How's it going? Um uh, ja- uh During James's live he talked about um uh his book series Discount Dan and what was going on with that. And he explained some stuff going on with him wanting to do it himself and then having a thing go on with Audible Studios or whatever, and kind of let the cat out of the bag because I've been hinting at a project that I'm really excited to do that's coming up, but I didn't want to say anything because it's like until all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, I get a little bit nervous. But since James kind of like let the cat out of the bag, I can say that I have been in talks with Audible Studios. They have approached me about doing James's book. We went through some of their process of what they're requesting uh, as far as my information, and then also needing some specs as far as my home studio goes and what's going on with that. And then uh, I got the email, I believe yesterday morning, I think it was, that they checked my levels on my recordings, my raw audio, and it's all been approved. So I think there's a few more. I don't know if there's more like I filled out all their information, their tax stuff, all that kind of stuff. I think there's a few more signing things that need to be done, but so far it seems like everything's good to go and that we're okay. So I can officially say that yes, the plan is that we will be recording Discount Dan later this year, which I am very excited because we don't have much left in this year. So close to the home stretch, and I'm very excited. So James and I will have to have a sit down, and we will chat because I have had the opportunity to read Discount Dan, and I freaking loved it. I thought it was so good. So I cannot wait to sink my teeth into some awesome characters. So I'm really, really pleased about that. Hey Kyle, how you doing? So yeah, that's going to be amazing. If you haven't been around this during this Discord while I've been during this Discord during this con while I've been on, I've been plugging big time what I've been working on lately, and that's the Industrial Strength Magic book series for Macronomicon through Soundbooth Theater is doing the production, and we have Jeff Hayes, Justin Thomas James, Annie Ellicott, and We may have some more people coming, although that is still up in the air, although I think that it's gonna work, but we may have some more people added to the cast for, books 2 and 3, and so I'll be very excited to make those announcements because they're amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And, what else can I tell you about while I'm waiting if anybody has any specific questions? Uh, what else are you working on at the moment? Well, I guess I'm talking about that right now, aren't I? So, yeah, we're working on that. We're getting that, figured out, and then, uh oh, yeah, Stitched Worlds was awesome. Loved that series. This is actually my 3rd series with Macronomicon because we did the Stitched Worlds, which I was just gaga over. I loved that. Then we did Wake of the Ravager. The first book is called The Problem with Princesses, and, it's so funny. Really, really great stuff. Um, and then now we're doing Industrial Strength Magic together, and this one was done through Soundbooth Theater. Uh, I would love it if Andrea Parsnow showed up to do another book for you. I would too. I would too. So maybe that will happen soon. Um, what got me into narrating? You know, that is a great question. I have talked about it a lot, but basically what happened was, I mean, I grew up acting, I grew up on stage, I loved it, but I was never everyone was always saying like, "Oh, Steve, you're gonna go to Hollywood or whatever," but I was like in a tiny little dinky town in northern BC, and so I was like one of those big fish in a small pond, and I was like, "I'm too practical to be able to do anything like that." So what I ended up doing was, going into construction and just doing all that stuff, but while I was working in construction, there would be a lot of times where, um, you would, there'd be a lot of times where I was just listening to music all the time, and it was just exhausting, and so I thought, "You know what? I could be doing something more with this time. I could be listening to books." And so I started listening to audiobooks while I was working, and you can only listen to so many nonfiction books, like I was doing, like, some, books on, like, particular interests that I was in or self-help books or whatever to just try and better myself, and, those are usually, like, 7, 8 hours, and when you're working, like, a 10 to 14-hour day, you're going through a lot of those books very quickly, and it's a lot of information that you just don't have time to process if you're just going and so sometimes I would read the same book like 3, 4 I have some books that I'd listened to like 7 times over. I was like, "Okay, I need to try something different." So, I had started the Wheel of Time series, um, in like reading format, just book format, and was in love with that series. But then, of course, when Jordan died, and we were still waiting at that time for them to find someone to finish the series, it was on hiatus. And so then when they found Brandon Sanderson, again, we were waiting for him to finish that book. And when it finally came out, I was like, I don't remember so much of this series. I'm going to have to go back and reread the whole thing. But my wife hates it when I just sit and like, because as soon as I get a book, I can't stop reading it. I have to just go, 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 go. So, and those books are so big and so long that it was like, we have kids. I can't take that much time away from my family. So I thought if I do it on audio, then I can listen to it while I'm working and it'll kill two birds with one stone. So I did that and I was listening to those while I was working in construction. And oh man, yeah, it's incredible. So I was in awe at what Michael Kramer and Kate Redding were able to do with these characters and how they were to have so many different characters and just do such amazing things with just their voice and just paint pictures in your mind. And I love that. And so my youngest kids who were at the age where they still wanted me to read to them at night, I was reading to them Percy Jackson actually, and started trying to emulate like if I was to narrate this, how would I do it? And I was trying to emulate trying to narrate that, and I was having a lot of fun with it and really enjoying it, and it just got me thinking, and then, um, I actually was listening to a book, I won't say what the book was, but it's a very, very, very popular, well-known book, and, I was just like, "This is horrible, this narration is brutal, I could do a better job than this guy," and then all of a sudden I was like, "Wait a minute, I could do a better job than this guy, well, how does one get into narration?" So that's when I started looking into it more and thinking about it and really going down a Google trail of trying to get all the information I could for a few months. And then finally, I decided to set up a little thing on my phone, on my iPhone with my little air. earbuds and GarageBand on my phone and recorded the first chapter of um, Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. And then I sent that to a few friends that I knew listened to audiobooks. And I was like, seriously, tell me. I don't want you to tell me that I'm, like, oh, yeah, no, that's really good. Like, genuinely tell me whether you think this is something I could do. And they all came back and said, genuinely, this is something we think you could do. And then it took me another month before I was willing to take that over to my wife and say, okay, I want you to think about this for a little bit, but this is, um, like, before you say anything, just let me explain everything. And so she hates listening to audiobooks, but I says, okay, just bear with me. And so I let her listen to some of the ones that I thought were sensational narrators and some of the ones that I was like, I could do a better job than that. And then I let her listen to mine. And I said, okay, what do you think? And my wife is wonderful at keeping me grounded, um, and keeping me in reality by every time I go, hey, you know what I think I should do? And she goes, no. I think that this no. So, yeah, she's she's very good at bringing that back into reality of like, "No, this is not a good idea." But with this, she's like, "Yeah, you could do this." And my heart swelled, and I think I might have cried, um, a little bit, but I was just so overexcited and elated, and then, I was like, "Okay, well, I need to buy a microphone," and she's like, "No, no, you're not buying another thing. You have enough hobbies that you've bought stuff for, so sell some of that stuff and then use that money to buy your microphone or whatever." And I says, "Okay, I'll do that." So I sold some other hobby items that I had collected that just were collecting dust and literally weren't doing anything, and used that money to finance the equipment that I needed to get into audiobook narration, and got a coach and started working at it. And yeah, no, she's a smart lady. My wife is smart. And so I started working at it and practicing. And unfortunately, at that time, ACX, which was like the you started ACX, it was free and it was like a no holds barred. You could go in and do your stuff. Wasn't available to Canadians. So I actually um, wrote a letter to ACX wanting them to get it. And I felt I was pretty persuasive in that letter. Um, I tried to make it memorable. I feel like it worked because it was 3 months later that ACX, they announced that you could be a narrator from Canada. So I was very happy about that, but I had already been working at it for 6 months trying to get everything ready. So I had demos ready, I had a website ready, I had all this stuff ready to go. And so as soon as ACX opened, I put my stuff on there. And I think it was about 40 minutes between the time that I uploaded my account that I had two offers coming in, one from an independent publisher and one from an independent author. And I thought, this is amazing. This is the best thing in the world. And then I realized that a lot of the things that get put on ACX don't make any money at all. But I didn't care because I was doing what I dreamed of doing. And so I did it for about 6 months part time, and was getting busier and busier. And then all of a sudden it was just time that it was like I was so busy that it was it just made it sense to switch over to doing it full time. And thankfully my wife was very supportive, and thankfully I was at a job, not even a job. I owned a small construction company. So I could take a hiatus, try this out, and um, if it didn't work out, then I could be like, well, I guess I'm going back to the tools. So it was a lot of safety in that for me. So thankfully, I have yet to need to worry about going back to the tools. But yeah, it's been a wild ride ever since. So yeah, man of 100 voices. Well, I saw that Mel Blanc is called the man of 1,000 voices, which I mean, justifiably so. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a clip of Hank Azaria talking about the genius of Mel Blanc and how he had a situation where um, uh, where he had to get Daffy Duck impersonating Bugs Bunny, and then Bugs Bunny comes in impersonating Daffy Duck, and Hank Azaria was like, "I don't think anyone but voice actors would understand how incredibly challenging that is." Because we tried to do it he says, if I was to take Apu and make Mo impersonate Apu, and then I was to take Apu and make him sound like he was impersonating Mo, they would sound exactly the same. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And he says, we tried this on the set of Simpsons, and none of us could do it. And it's just the genius that is Mel Blanc, that he could have Daffy impersonating Bugs, and it sounded different than when Bugs impersonated Daffy. It's a really cool clip if you ever get a chance to see it on YouTube or whatever. But yeah, I'm in awe of the talent that is voice acting. Mel Blanc is just amazing. But even in our own audiobook community, guys like Jeff Hayes, who just kills it. I'm sure everyone by now has listened to Dungeon Crawler Carl, and the vast array of voices that uh, series has forced Jeff to come up with is just incredible. And I mean, Andrea Parsnow is one of those ones that can just do anything, and it is amazing. Um, and then also the way she's able to do male voices. Yeah, she's just wow, really cool. Okay, let me try and get to some of these other questions here. That's inspiring. How do you go about finding a character's voice? You know, it depends. Some come immediately. When I read just for my own pleasure, read to myself, um, I realized recently that this isn't what everybody does. There's some that do. But for me, I literally have to read as if I'm hearing the voices in my head. So I found out that not everybody has that. And some people can hum and read at the same time. I can't do that. I wouldn't be able to retain or even focus on the sentence as I was going. Um, and so for me, I have to be able to hear the voices in my head as I'm going through. And so the better an author is at characterizing those characters, um, of making them distinct with their either their dialogue or their sentence structures or their sayings or the way their mannerisms or whatever it is, it makes it that much easier for me to just innately, this is the way I imagine that person would sound like in my head. And so sometimes that's just very fast. And then other times I have to work at it a little bit, um, multiple times. And I know Andre is like this as well. Uh, Multiple times I've had it where I've been recording a voice and I get a chapter or two chapters in or however long in, and it's not feeling right. It's just not there. And so I have to take a step back or I have to work at it a little bit and come at it from a different angle. And then I figure out, oh, this is the way I think that voice should sound. And then I go back and I re record all of those lines in that uh, section where that character showed up. Hopefully, it hasn't been too far so that I'm able to really, nail in where that character lies in my imagination. I try and make it it's difficult because you try and make it the author's it's the author's book, it's the author's baby, it's the author's characters. Um, so you want to honor their intent of what they plan to do. And so I try and do that as much as possible, but ultimately it is my interpretation of their words. Now, hopefully, luck would have it that it lines up very nicely and that you have both of those running together, but sometimes they diverge. Thankfully, so far as anyone's told me, uh, authors that have come to me and said, "Hey, this diverges from what I thought," they've actually said, "But what you did was way better than I even thought it could be." So love that. Keep going. So that's very um, makes me very happy. Also, um, I had very early on in my career, uh, I had a book that was doing quite well, and I noticed that there was a significant amount more people who had rated my performance as the Audible has like the 3 tiers, like they have overall, performance, and then story, and my performance rating was always higher than my story rating. And I was feeling really guilty about that because I thought, "Oh, man, I'm outshining the story." And, so I had a good relationship with this author. We had worked together on a couple of books and I said, "I'm really sorry." I finally admitted, I was like, "I'm really sorry that's happening." He's like, "Are you kidding? That's awesome." He said, "Imagine if it was the other way around and your voice was, like, lower than my story, so you were detracting from the book, the quality of the book." And I was like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes sense." He's like, "Yeah, that's something to be proud of." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, no, I get that. Thank you." So that made me feel a lot better. So I'm actually quite grateful that so far as I know, it's been like a month or a few months or whatever. I try and check on it every so often, but so far as I know, every book that I've done so far, the rating of my performance is always or the same than the story, meaning that I'm elevating that story, hopefully, is the idea, and making it, uh, something great or something that people really resonate with, which is awesome. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have detractors or whatever, but it does happen. What is the best part of being a narrator, and what is the worst, most difficult part? Both are kind of the same a little bit. The best part is I get to play in the world's imaginations of some incredibly ingenious people. Um, but at the same time, that comes with a load of responsibility of making sure that you're hitting all of those notes and doing the very best you can. And that can be very debilitating when you feel like you're not quite hitting it right, or you get an imposter syndrome, or you get inside your own head with anxiety, or what they're asking you to do feels like an impossibility, and you're like, I just am not hitting this. And so you get panic and freaked out. And so, yeah, trying to keep up on your skills, trying to improve your accents, trying to improve your performance and all that kind of stuff is you're never I think if you hit the place where you're like, yeah, I'm good, I don't need to learn anymore, I'm as good as I want to be, I feel like maybe that's the time to stop. I always want to be growing, I always want to be learning. Um, and although you can hit a stage where like, yeah, I feel good about what I'm doing right now, but I want to be better. So yeah, I'm always wanting to improve. Um, so those are really important. As an audiobook listener, I love a great narrator, and a bad narrator is enough to get me to drop the book for a long time on my TBR until I run out of audiobooks and get a chance to read it. I can understand that. A good voice actor takes a book and turns it into gold. Actually, Kyle, that was my motto when I started. My goal, because I had been in construction and I had owned a company for about 20 years, I kind of understood the whole concept of being an entrepreneur and independent contractor and that kind of stuff. And my motto going into this is I wanted to make a bad book good, a good book great, and a great book excellent. So that I was always elevating that story. That was what I wanted to do every single time I came in. So how are your female voices? Maria asked. You know what's funny? Uh, Early on in my career, I did a lot of books under a pseudonym called Chris Graves that were harem fantasy books. And which would be kind of ironic because you would have a main male character, and there probably were some other male characters kind of put in there, but a large majority of all the other dialogue was females because they had this harem of women. And so I was really concerned about trying to get um, my female voices really, really nailed down, because I hated it when guys were just like, oh, if I talk like this, I sound like a girl, because that's horrible. That's not right. And so I worked at it and worked at it. And then I had one of my books had a review early on. I think it was like my third book or something like that, um, where they said his female voices are great. Don't really like his male voices. And I'm like, thank you, I think. So yeah, I mean, I had worked really hard on getting those female voices good, and then the male ones took a nosedive. So then I was like, I should work on those too, I guess. So I tried to do as much as I could. Um, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. Uh, where am I at here for questions? Question: do you prefer working alone or with someone else, or in a group of three plus? So here's the thing: I love getting to do collaborative work. I have a number that I have done. With different narrators, either as a duet narration or a dual narration. If you don't know the difference, dual narration is where you have a male point of view in one chapter, and so the male narrator reads all of the characters, male and female, in that chapter, and then the female point of view chapters are read by a female narrator, and she reads all the male and all the female characters' dialogue, and then it swaps back and forth. And you need to have a lot of communication with that, in my opinion, because um, even though you're not going to sound the same on certain characters, you don't want them to be so contrasting, especially with other characters in the book, right? So if your main male character has a middle of the road voice where they're here, and then his best friend the male thinks that the best friend is way down here when he's talking, and then the female character, when he has the best friend, when she has the best friend talking, has him here, and then but the best friend is up here like this, then it's like contrasting really weird from the two of them. So you have to talk about that, or if one is has them like really excitable and like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, I just love it, it's so cool. And the other one's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, I love it, it's so cool. It sounds off, right? If they're not intermeshed on what those characters are doing in the respect of the fact that it's a male and a female doing those different voices. So I feel like that's important to keep track of, and not all narrators do or care. Um, and then it's less concerning when you have duet narration where it's uh, the males do all the male dialogue and the females do all the female dialogue, because then you're not crossing over characters, so you don't need to worry about that as much. But then what becomes important when you're doing duet narration is for you to uh holy shit, 5-minute warning already. Wow. Okay. These go by so fast. um, what's more important there is that you both understand the tone of a scene, so that if you have two people in the scene together and you haven't recorded it together live, you have to hope that they're matching your energy in that scene as far as what your interpretation of it is. So that's can be challenging to do. I have had the great privilege of a few times, specifically with Andrea Parsnow, but also Sarah Puckett and I recorded an entire book of duet live together on Discord. And man, that just, to me, that's just the best. So if I can get live in person working together recordings, that to me is the cat's meow. That really takes the cake. Okay, Brian Orden. It's the end of the con. We need a definitive answer. What's your all-time favorite lit RPG Irish author? Jack Fields is climbing the ranks. Oh, just to give you a little bit of shit, Brian. Although I haven't touched his face as like I've touched yours. You totally no longer there in other panels after that. Yeah. Uh, yeah, right. I don't know if they'll let me. This has been so great, Steve. Thank you for taking the time to do this takeover. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. Daniel asked, ever listen to your old books to see how far you've come? If so, how far back do you go? I have. I think I talked about it at one of the panels really quick. I'll just try and get this in really fast. On Facebook, I have memories that come up, and some of the memories are promotional material that I did for early works. And it was like, I chose that as an audio graphic to represent the best of what I thought I did in that book. And I listen back to it and go, oh God, oh, that's so bad. That's so horrible. But then I check myself and realize, you know what? I had people that liked it back then, and I had people that gave it great reviews and thought I was doing an awesome job. So maybe that's awesome for me to just kind of like, I've grown, and that has helped me improve and be a better narrator. And so it's, as much as I cringe to listen back to some of the stuff I've done and realize, man, I was rough back then, it also helps me to remember that I have somewhere to go um, moving forward, and that I'm not just going to be stationary in my ability or in my career, and I'll be able to keep going. What drew me to lit RPG? The fact that it's like Saturday morning cartoons for adults, and I get to really perform these characters. Whereas in a lot of audiobook narration that comes through in different genres, they don't want you to put a lot of performance into your audiobook. They want more, whether they want you to perform it, but they don't want a lot of character distinction, or they don't want you to do quote unquote voices. And I don't look at it as doing voices. I look at it as trying to give as much of a true reading and a greatest distinction between characters as possible. That to me is the best thing. When I started finding out that that was an opportunity that was there in lit RPG, that was where I wanted to go full bore. And then when I have to go back to other genres, I really have to scale that back a lot. And I've had producers come back and go, yeah, pull that back a little bit. So I appreciate that. Oh, thank you, Tara. Steve, where would you recommend someone start today if they wanted to go into narration? Narratorroadmap.com is a great place to start. There's like so much information on that website for any narrator or anybody looking to start narrating. That's like just a wealth of information of everywhere to go. I think that's the way it is. It might be Narratives Roadmap, but I think that's what it's called. But yeah, just an incredible place if you want to get into that. Okay, I think we're out of time, and I'm sorry if I didn't get to your questions, and I'm sorry if I didn't get to acknowledge all of your comments. I will try and read them through, but I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will try and hang out at the after party for a little bit since I'm already down here. So if you want to hang out with me and or the other amazing people that have been there the entire con, this is the last day to do so. So I really hope to see you there. You are awesome. Have a wonderful night. And if you want to see what's going on with me, go to stevecampbellsvoice.com, and that will give you all the information that you need about what I'm working on and all the links to my social media if you want to check that out, including Discord where I record live. Appreciate it. Love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Ciao for now. Bye. Awkward wave time.